What is going on, Sports Wars? We're here. We're live on a Monday night for a new live stream, a new segment that we're going to call Monday Evening Quarterback for right now. We're going to look ahead to tonight's Monday Night Football game, but we're also going to look at everything that happened on Sunday with the entire slate of NFL games, starting with obviously this week, week 2. So I'm excited for it. We're going to have more guests throughout the year as we do this. For right now, I think it's just going to be myself. But we are going to get other people, including Uche, former NFL player, on here to talk. We are going to get Robert Barnes. You guys have seen him doing the betting previews for Sports Wars. You're going to see him on here as well. But I am really excited for this. As you guys know, we have so many things in the works here at Sports Wars, so much stuff that we want to do to continue to grow this channel. And that's going to take consistency. And that's one of the things that we are definitely committed to. I see Visser Matt here. I see Lulu is here. Blue-Eyed Scorpio, Judicon, Ross, Duck Nation, the Bruninji is here as well. And we've also got a super chat straight off from Sir Ruin of House Roundhead. I was at the Ravens-Chiefs game last night. I'm glad the Ravens won. That was a hell of a game. I will say this for the NFL. There has been a lot of really good games in their primetime slots, with the exception of Rams-Bears, when the Rams just absolutely annihilated my Chicago Bears week 1 Sunday night. The rest of the games have been pretty damn good that they have had going on in prime time. So it's been a fortunate start for the NFL in terms of that, because those matchups sometimes don't necessarily play out. And when we saw the Thursday night game between the Washington football team and the New York Giants, I think a lot of us kind of rolled our eyes, thought that's a typical Thursday night matchup. Turned out to be a really, really good game. But what we're going to do with this stream, and thank you for the super chat, what we're going to do with this stream is literally just go through all of the games and point out some noteworthy things that we think happened, and then look forward to tonight's game. So like we talked about, we did have Giants and Washington, that game between Taylor Heineke and Daniel Jones. Going back and forth in the fourth quarter. Taylor Heineke eventually does get the win for the Washington football team. We talked about that a little on Sunday. So let's get into these Sunday night games. You got Bengals at my Chicago Bears. And my Chicago Bears handed the Bengals their first loss of the season. I got to say, with Andy Dalton going down, I think a lot of people expected a little bit more from Justin Fields when he did get in the game. And I think maybe now a lot of people who are advocating for Justin Fields to play, maybe now they understand where Matt Nagy's at, because Justin Fields didn't look great. And, if Joe Burrow doesn't throw three straight interceptions, I don't think the Bears end up winning this game, to be quite honest with you. But the Bears do come away with the victory, which is exciting for me. Exciting for me. I'm still getting my background set up here, but I did get my Brian Urlacher picture up. Got my Brian Urlacher picture up right there. I'm going to hang that up on the wall pretty soon. When you're looking at this game, obviously we're also playing fantasy football this year as well. From a fantasy standpoint, from the Chicago Bears, it's going to be really tough. David Montgomery, I think, is going to be inconsistent this year for sure. Everybody else, who knows who's going to get the targets, to be quite honest with you. Jamar Chase caught another big touchdown from his former college teammate Joe Burrow. And then Tyler Boyd, 7 receptions, good fantasy numbers if you're a PPR, but for sure. Texans-Browns. This game is interesting, and we're going to stop and talk about Deshaun Watson a little bit here, because the Browns beat the Texans, even though Tyrod Taylor, their backup quarterback for the Houston Texans, gets injured, goes out of the game. They end up playing somebody that I don't think anybody was really ready or expected, because Deshaun Watson is still sitting out. They're still going to have Deshaun Watson inactive, even in week 3. The Texans have already come out and said this, that Deshaun Watson will not play, even though he's perfectly healthy, because he's still demanding a trade. Deshaun Watson has been such a pussy through this entire thing. There's really no other way to say it. This dude who's been through all this trouble, caused all these problems, these bad headlines, all the problems with the law, yet he still is sitting here demanding to be traded. And guess what? His team looks surprisingly decent. Tyrod Taylor came in. I don't think anyone expected them to do what they did in week 1. And even in week 2 against the Browns, who are a better football team, they still are competing. They're still competitive, even with a third-string quarterback in there. So all this just makes Deshaun Watson look like a bitch, to be really honest. Quarterback Deshaun Watson will not be active for the Houston Texans game against the Carolina Panthers on Thursday night, despite starter Tyrod Taylor's uncertain status. Taylor's getting an MRI on his left hamstring, considered day-to-day. Taylor's replaced by rookie Davis Mills to start the second half. He injured his hammy when he ran for a 15-yard touchdown midway through the second quarter. Tyrod Taylor has looked the same way that Tyrod Taylor's basically looked his entire career. He gets an opportunity, he makes some plays, he doesn't really turn the ball over, he looks okay, and then they eventually bring someone else that's a little bit better than him to take away his spot. That's kind of the story of Tyrod Taylor's career. So it's unfortunate that he got injured here when getting that opportunity. But Baker Mayfield looked like he was going to get injured there. Looked like we might have to worry about who the backup was going to be in Cleveland after Baker threw a bad pick and then tried to make a tackle, got a stinger, but he got back on the field. A lot of quarterbacks getting injured in week 2. Some of them maybe for a long period of time. Others, not so much. Others were able to get back up like Derek Carr and like Baker Mayfield. Rams, Colts. Speaking of quarterbacks that got injured, Carson Wentz. I'm going to talk about him in a second, but I want to take a minute to talk about Matthew Stafford and the Rams. The Rams, so I think people are now going to overhype them a little bit. I think you're going to see pretty big spreads for the Rams after what you've seen Matthew Stafford and this offense be able to do over these first 2 weeks. Knowing that they were going to make this upgrade from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford, which I think people were out on Matthew Stafford for a long time with him struggling up there in Detroit. He's come in and showed that in a system with talent, man, he can really be a director of an elite, high-powered offense when he has those tools and when he has a coach that's there to support him. Will it continue the rest of the season? Will it lead to playoff success? Who knows? But, you know, as someone who's rooted for the Bears often against Matthew Stafford, knowing that team is just always miserable, and the Lions, it's good to see Matthew Stafford, maybe go somewhere where he can have some success, and it's not against the Bears, with the exception of that first Sunday night game. But Cooper Kupp, my boy Cooper Kupp lit it up. Cooper Kupp is the fucking man. I've had him in fantasy football for the past 3 seasons, I believe. Now with Matthew Stafford, man, it's only going to take it to the next level. You thought that chemistry was good with Jared Goff. This is going to be insanity. So I'm really looking forward to having Cooper Kupp on my fantasy team. He's not going to go for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns every single game. But when you do look at the volume that Cooper Kupp has been able to get over these first 2 games, I think it's a safe bet in a PPR league that Cooper Kupp is really going to rack up the points. Probably going to be a top 10 wide receiver when it's all said and done for the year. At least I'm certainly hoping so. You look at that 11 targets on the team. Robert Woods had those 9 targets. Tyler Higbee, who a lot of people, big pickup, Tyler Higbee on the waiver wire for tight ends this year, didn't get a big lion's share of those targets, did he? 1 target, 1 catch for 8 yards. So some disappointed people. But on the other side, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Now, let me close this really quick. Let's see. Boom. We don't have any mods in here, so we're not dealing with fucking bullshit today. Let's see.
Sheldon, good to see you. Wonderful.
Get out of here, ad. All right, now speaking of the Indianapolis Colts, the Colts who played the Seahawks and lost in that week 1 matchup really put up a fight in this game. Carson Wentz put up a fight, and Carson Wentz, after being kind of plagued by injuries in the offseason when he had that surgery on his foot, came back to be ready to go. Carson Wentz is now having problems once again. Carson Wentz, who just cannot seem to stay on the field. Now he has 2 sprained ankles. And if you looked at some of the hits that he took and the way he was trying to create anything he could. He made some really, really poor decisions out there on the field, trying to get the offense going and trying to continue drives. He's lucky he didn't have a lot more picks than he did throw in this game, because there were a couple times he just kind of launched the ball up there for grabs. But Carson Wentz was under a lot of pressure from that Rams front line, and now he's got 2 sprained ankles. Might miss Sunday's game versus the Titans. Carson Wentz has 2 sprained ankles. Yes, the quarterback managed to injure both of his ankles in Sunday's loss to the Rams and might miss next week's matchup against the Tennessee Titans. Now, how exactly did he suffer not 1 but 2 ankle injuries? He didn't do it jumping off a ledge. You can credit Aaron Donald. And listen, I've seen Aaron Donald is an incredible player. He's an aggressive player. He's a great tackler. He is very, very aggressive when he gets people to the ground and rolls, because that's what he does. He gets their legs and he rolls to try to make sure that they can't break out of it, that they can't continue. And when he rolled, he rolled those ankles hard. And so Carson Wentz once again is going to be, in question of will he play or won't he play? Are they going to have Jacob Eason? Is that their second string quarterback in there? He did not look good at all when they were, when he did get a couple plays here and there. Carson Wentz, they need this dude in Indianapolis if they want to do anything this season. So not good news. As far as fantasy goes, talking about the Colts, there's really nothing good to say, I don't think. Now, Michael Pittman had a massive day, right? Michael Pittman had a massive, massive day. 12 targets for 8 receptions, 163 yards. But is that going to be consistent? Are we going to consistently see Michael Pittman get that kind of, target percentage, that kind of volume? I don't necessarily think so. But realistically, him, Pascal, maybe Jack Doyle if you really need a tight end bad. But I think there's other better tight ends on the market unless you're in an incredibly deep league. But the Colts come up short against the LA Rams. Let's go back, see what the next one on this list is. This one, I know we got some Bills fans in the chat. The Buffalo Bills, who got off to a struggling start against the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1. Coming to week 2 against the Miami Dolphins. Drive right down the field, take it to the Dolphins, Singletary, a big run for a touchdown, and it was just downhill after that for Miami. The big news from this one is, again, a quarterback injury. Tua Tagovailoa is hurt, which if you followed Tua's career, that shouldn't be a surprise. You've got a lot of people, part of the Geeks and Gamers team, like Jeremy. Of course, you guys know he's a big Alabama fan, big Tua fan, and he always says, well, if he can stay healthy, he could be good. I personally think that Tua has a lot to prove. I think Tua has a lot to prove to even be like, well, if he's healthy, then he could be good. Tua has a lot of work to do because I don't think he looks great when he's out there personally. But he's not out there. Once again, he gets carted off the field due to a rib injury. Take a look at this. Tua is day-to-day after a rib injury per Dolphins head coach Brian Flores. And this was an absolute beatdown. Jacoby Brissett came in as the backup quarterback. Did not look good. Didn't look like he was ready to play. And Miami just got blown out of the water. They really did. Excuse me. A little burp escape there. But they got blown out of the fucking water. Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is considered day-to-day with his latest rib injury, head coach Brian Flores told reporters. The Dolphins are scheduled to face the Vegas Raiders next Sunday. Per Tom Pelissero, Tagovailoa suffered bruised ribs during his team's 35-0 loss. Now, when it comes to the rib injury, bruised ribs, typically it's just going to be a pain management thing. If he has full range of motion, if it's a pain tolerance thing, he should be able to play. Cracked ribs, that's obviously a different story. Even though sometimes it's pain management. Is Tua going to play? I think it's likely that he will. But still, it's just one more thing. The dude is always getting hurt. The dude is always getting brought off the field for some reason. He's just too flimsy, someone said. Too flimsy for the pros. Certainly seems to be the case. But this one doesn't really take a lot of analysis. Buffalo didn't have to do too much. They ran it down Miami's throat. Josh Allen didn't look great. You can see that 17 for 33. I think people expect a lot from Josh Allen this year with that big payday that he got. he needs to look a little better than he has in these first 2 games, but he didn't have to do too much. Let's be real. He did not have to do too much in this game specifically because they were in command the entire time. But the Bills and the Dolphins now both 1-1. Patriots and Jets. Mac Jones versus Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson, I think my fantasy strategy, because I'm always a waiver wire defense guy, my fantasy strategy is going to be to look at who's playing the New York Jets and who's playing the Jaguars. That's going to be my strategy for the next little bit. And if I can get a good matchup there, I'm going to take that because those are rookie quarterbacks that I think are going to turn the ball over quite often in Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. As we've seen these first 2 weeks, Zach Wilson's going to throw it up. Zach Wilson does not look like he's ready. Zach Wilson looks like he's in over his head. Now, he's a rookie. That happens. We get so used and spoiled to some of these guys coming in and lighting it up right away. Zach Wilson looks like he's going to have a little bit of a struggle on his hands. But Mac Jones, the Patriots are not asking Mac Jones to do a lot. They're not asking him to beat Tom Brady. They're not asking him to do like crazy things. They're asking him to manage an offense, and that's what Mac Jones is looking to do. And when they're playing teams like the Jets and they can rely on their defense for those turnovers, they can run the ball a lot, they can take care of the football. The Patriots are going to beat down on an opponent like the Jets. So Patriots have evened it out at 1-1. As a lot of you guys know, Sports Wars is going to be in Boston, well, in Foxborough, Massachusetts, to see the Buccaneers come and play the Patriots. Tom Brady's return to Foxborough, that's going to be nuts. I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see Tom Brady return. But I don't think it's going to go that well for the Patriots when the Bucs get up there. But we'll talk about the Bucs in a little bit. 49ers and Eagles. So many people were quick to point out, to kind of get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. And I get that. I think Jimmy Garoppolo has been very hit or miss in his career, and he'll show these flashes where it looks like he could really be the guy. Then he shows stretches where it's like, God, get rid of this dude. But the 49ers in that first game against Detroit, that offense was really clicking, racked up a lot of yards. It almost doesn't matter what running back they throw out there. They continue to have running back injuries over and over and over again. I would stay away from any running back associated with San Francisco if you're looking for fantasy. I know it might seem tempting to go out and get like somebody like Eli Mitchell, right? But when we look at this box score, I want to go look at the box score for this game. Like, that was the big pickup. It's like, oh, Eli Mitchell's going to be the guy. He's going to get all the touches. He's going to be our workhorse. 17 carries for 42 yards. He didn't do anything. So you have such a mess of people who are going to be getting opportunities back there. In a Kyle Shanahan offense, I would stay away right now from these running backs if you're looking from a fantasy perspective. Deebo Samuel does seem to be the dominant guy there when you're talking about wide receiver targets, the volume. So he's probably going to have a pretty good season. Shut the hell up. Ad. I hate these autoplay ads. Now, the Eagles, I think that Jalen Hurts, this is much more likely to be the Jalen Hurts that we should expect to see throughout the year. What he did in week 1 with how efficient he was passing, I don't think we're going to see that every week. I think this is much more in the realms of reality for Jalen Hurts because this is who Jalen Hurts has been always. Jalen Hurts, 12 for 23, didn't throw a touchdown, didn't turn the ball over. And then Jalen Hurts with 1 touchdown rushing, 82 yards. Somebody who's going to be a fantasy viable option, but is going to have some games like this. Some games like this where he's just not able to do a ton passing wise. That's the struggle you're going to get week to week with the Eagles. Right now, they're sitting there at 1-1. I think it's interesting that the 49ers have come out with a good road victory against the Eagles, and obviously that great start against Detroit in an NFC West that is loaded. Let's make no mistake. The NFC West right now is loaded between the Cardinals, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, the 49ers, the Rams, the Seahawks. All those teams are good. The NFC West is, I think, the best division in football. Just thinking about it right now off the top of my head. We'll see if it continues throughout the season. The Raiders beat the Steelers. And we got to talk about Derek Carr, man. We got to talk about Derek Carr because even though it seemed like John Gruden maybe didn't want him there, like maybe not everybody wanted Derek Carr there. He is the guy there. He is the franchise quarterback, and he has come out in these first 2 games and lit it up. You can see that line, 28 for 37 for 382 yards and 2 touchdowns. A couple long bombs Derek Carr had, and they beat the Steelers at Pittsburgh. That's a follow-up to that victory they had against the Ravens when all that nonsense went on. I made a video on here on Sports Wars, that crazy ending. But in Vegas, they got it done and walked it off in overtime against the Raiders with that insane throw when the Ravens, brought basically all-out blitz at the end of that game. But Derek Carr looking good. And when we look, again, I want to look at a fantasy perspective here. I want to go to this fantasy perspective because we are talking fantasy this year. We do have the fantasy league going on. I said after that first game that I think the 2 guys who you can count on to be fantasy relevant for the Raiders are going to be Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. Now, Ruggs had a big game. Ruggs had a really big game, with a big touchdown there, 7 targets, but Darren Waller also 7 targets, Hunter Renfrow 7 targets. So if you are in a PPR, I think those guys are the guys that are going to be reliable for you and get you some points. Waller obviously didn't have the 20 target game that he had in week 1. But a lot of people spent big-time draft picks, big-time draft capital on Darren Waller. We'll see if that volume continues throughout the entire season. Steelers. I see you guys in the chat talking about Big Ben a little bit. Big Ben looks old. Big Ben looks out of shape. I hate these autoplay ads from ESPN. I wish I could turn them off. But Roethlisberger here, 27 for 40 for less than 300 yards for 1 touchdown and 1 pick. Also took some big hits, some big hits. Najee Harris, not efficient on the ground. Najee Harris did come away with a passing score, though. He caught a ball. I think it was like a 25-yard touchdown or something like that. Najee Harris right there, 5 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown. So still getting good volume from Najee Harris and, good production from a fantasy standpoint. Deontay Johnson, I haven't heard official word. I've not heard official word on Deontay Johnson. I have him on my bench in fantasy. It looked like that's a pretty bad injury for him. I wonder if I click on his name, if they've got an update there. To me, looking off, it didn't look great. It says he did not sustain a serious knee injury. So that's what they're saying. So hopefully Deontay Johnson's okay. It did not look good at the end of that game, but according to the reports, he should be okay, which is good for fantasy owners. Good for fantasy owners because he's getting a lot of targets over there. But Pittsburgh falls to 1-1. Raiders up to 2-0. Saints and Panthers. This game, I said in the Sunday pregame, I said, listen, I don't think we're going to see that same Jameis Winston that we saw in week 1, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Saints respond to having so many people out due to COVID because they had a lot of players and a lot of coaches specifically that were out because of COVID. And Jameis Winston reverted to Tampa Bay Jameis. Jameis Winston reverted to the dude that he has looked like a little bit, a guy who's going to scramble around, get outside of the parameters of the play, and just throw it up for grabs. That's what Jameis Winston looked like. And the results were what we're used to seeing when Jameis Winston acts like that. And it didn't turn out well for them. Sam Darnold looked pretty damn good. Sam Darnold got off to a quick lead. Christian McCaffrey I told you about Christian McCaffrey. I told y'all, it's not really predicting much that Christian McCaffrey is going to have 150 total yards and a score. That's not really blowing, making some kind of crazy prediction because it's just what he does week in and week out. He is that dude. Sam Darnold looked good for the Panthers. That offense looked, pretty good at times. And the defense just shut the Saints down at Carolina. So Panthers improved to 2-0, a sneaky 2-0 for the Carolina Panthers, while the Saints fall to 1-1. But I think everybody knows who the team to beat there is. The team to beat there is definitely the Buccaneers, who we will talk about. But Jameis Winston cannot act like that, right? He cannot act like that and expect to have success with the New Orleans Saints. Broncos and Jaguars. Teddy Bridgewater, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, taking care of the ball. The Broncos improve to 2-0. The Jags fall to 0-2 And I think a lot of people are looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars and saying the sky is falling. The sky is falling. I know Uche is one of those people looking at the talent that they have, the way they've built that roster, and the results that they're getting. I think it's still a little early to tell for the Jacksonville Jaguars if this is going to be an Urban Meyer cut and run situation. I think he wants to make it happen. Trevor Lawrence, we'll see. He looked better than he looked in the first week, I guess, when it comes to, managing the offense, but it really stalled out. They went on that opening drive where they scored that touchdown, and then they didn't do shit for several quarters. So Trevor Lawrence, a rookie quarterback with not a ton of talent surrounding him and a lot of attention on Urban Meyer and that Jags team, whereas the Broncos just go ahead and get it done. And I wanted to look because, we had Jerry Jeudy, go out, get injured. He's going to be out for a long time for Denver. Cortland Sutton with a game, dude. Cortland Sutton with a massive game with Jeudy out. 12 targets, 9 receptions, nearly 160 yards. That is big. Now, Noah Fant bailed me out. He didn't get the kind of volume I'd necessarily like to see. I'd like to see him get more than 4 receptions, but he did get a touchdown on there, so helped me out in fantasy for sure. Got 6 targets. Like to see it up to 7 or 8, but, what are you going to do? He ended up with a touchdown, so you can't complain about that too much. But yeah, Broncos up to 2-0 in that division. Now, a game that I watched a lot of because it's very fantasy relevant was Vikings and Cardinals. When I see a lot of people asking if I'm by myself, yeah, just all by myself today. We're going to have more people on these in the future. We're going to have Robert Barnes. We're going to have Uche on these Monday evening quarterback streams. But for right now, it's just me today because I just wanted to get it done. I wanted to start it. I wanted to establish this time slot so you guys know what to expect. Vikings and Cardinals. The Vikings with 2 very, very tough losses to start out this season. Against Cincinnati and now against the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are going to put on a show, I think. Kyler Murray, he's my fantasy quarterback, which I'm happy about. But he is just electric back there because of this new NFL. This is the way the NFL is now. You can have a guy who's like 5'9" and just fast as hell out there running around, creating lanes, extending the play, and a bunch of really fast, athletic wide receivers to eventually get free from the cornerbacks. And that's what happened. That's what is consistently happening. And especially when you have someone like Hopkins on that team who can catch anything within his radius that he can rely on, that someone like Kyler Murray can rely on when he's in trouble. So that offense is going to cook all year long. I wouldn't trust any running backs from it. I don't think there's any running backs from it that are fantasy relevant. But I think that nearly every wide receiver from Arizona, depending on how deep your league is, man, at this point, you can almost justify starting them. Like Christian Kirk, right? Christian Kirk was a big-time pickup for a lot of people. I don't think he had the targets that people would want, but, he had 4 targets for 3 catches and 65 yards. So PPR, he got you 10 points, which isn't a lot, but in some people, depending on how deep your league is, that might be okay for a kind of flex play. DeAndre Hopkins with 4 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. I think you'll see increase in volume for him consistently over time. Rondale Moore was the story. My man, boiler up, Rondale Moore caught a massive touchdown. He's going to be electric for these guys. And Max Williams with a 7-reception, 94-yard day. So Arizona Cardinals going to be interesting to watch and really exciting to watch this season. Over to the Vikings. The Vikings, this is a really tough way for them to start off the season because they've played well. They have played pretty well, especially, this game and last game, not so much. This game, I do think they played well. And, a missed 37-yard field goal to end it, that is shitty for them. But as a Bears fan, I'm okay with it. Lose as much as you want. Hell, we're going to be tied for the lead in the NFC North, no matter who wins this game. So I'm happy with this game tonight between the Packers and the Lions. So I'm fine with it as a Bears fan with the Minnesota Vikings losing. Dalvin Cook, 131 yards. Dalvin Cook is a workhorse. Dalvin Cook is always a beast if he can stay on the field. So we got to watch out for Dalvin Cook and any injury bugs. But when you look at the receivers, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, those are my boys. I actually have both of them on my fantasy team because I snuck Adam Thielen in a very late round, and I can't not draft him if he comes by me in like the 10th or 11th round with as many targets as that dude is going to get. Both of them had 6 receptions. Both of them had a touchdown. So a good, reliable game from both those guys. I hope they're both going to be reliable fantasy, wide receiver picks throughout this entire year. And then Dalvin Cook only had 2 receptions. So you're gonna get games where Dalvin Cook has 5 to 6 receptions for sure. Do you believe? I see people in the chat. Do you believe the Arizona Cardinals hype? I don't think we should say Super Bowl contender or anything yet. And but I do think that you look at that offense, you look at what the defense was able to do against Tennessee, whether you think they caught them sleeping or not, and you have to pay attention to Arizona Cardinals. They're in a really tough division that's going to fucking have to play each other a lot between the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers. But you can't deny the Arizona Cardinals have been exciting and fun to watch these first two games. George Kittle in fantasy. Yeah, George Kittle in fantasy. You're probably a little bit disappointed if you did draft him, that's for sure. Now, Falcons and Buccaneers, a blowout. What turned out to be a blowout, a 48-25. But the Buccaneers did let the Falcons get back in this game. I think we all knew. We saw Tom Brady come out there and troll the Falcons with the 28-3 screensaver. Tom Brady is sending a message that last year was not some fluke, is not something that people can just wipe away, that he is here and he is going to dominate. That's what Tom Brady is looking to do. 5 touchdown passes in this game against Atlanta. 2 go to Mike Evans, 2 go to Rob Gronkowski. Forget who the other one went to. But, a big game for the Buccaneers. The Falcons, it's going to be a long year for the Falcons. I do want to say that I think that the Buccaneers, from what we saw in that Dallas game and the way they let the Falcons get back into this game, the back end of that Buccaneers defense, I think it's something we should pay attention to. That defense was able to come up really big at the end of the year. They made some big plays and had some great games at the end of the year throughout the playoffs to really help out Tom Brady in that offense to win the Super Bowl, which you need. You need both things to happen to be able to go out there and win. But the back end of that D has looked a little suspicious a couple times early on this season. So they've got a 2-0 record. Who are they going to lose to? I don't know at this point. But that would be the one thing that I would say look out for when it comes to Tampa. Running backs, I don't know how much traction you get from these running backs. Leonard Fournette is not catching. I don't think Leonard Fournette's going to catch the ball enough to be a guy that you want to start in anything other than possibly a sort of flex position. But Atlanta, man, Atlanta's a mess, dude. Matt Ryan looks old. Matt Ryan threw 3 interceptions. I do like that Kyle Pitts was up there. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 73 yards. I do think you're going to see big things from Kyle Pitts this year. Him and Calvin Ridley, I think, are going to get the lion's share of those targets. Kyle Pitts is going to get those targets that would have gone to Julio Jones. So Kyle Pitts hopefully can be the guy that they drafted at number 4 overall. To pick a tight end, number 4 overall, you're going to expect a lot of things from this guy. And hopefully, as he learns this offense more, as he gets more comfortable, he is going to be a big part of that offense. And that offense can start to do a little more than we've seen early on. But there's not too much to say other than Tom Brady is really fucking good. The Falcons are not. That's the bottom line when it comes to them. Cowboys and Chargers. I got to be honest here. I expected this game to go a little different than it did. I expected this game to be higher scoring. I expected there to be a lot of fantasy points scored in this game. I was a little wrong. I would have said take the over on this game in a heartbeat after what we saw from week 1 from both the Chargers and the Cowboys. But that's not what it ended up being. It ended up being a struggle. The game was like 14-11 for quite some time before the Chargers were able to, go and go and get it back. Field goal. The Cowboys scored a couple field goals. So not the game we really thought it was going to be, but Justin Herbert is going to sling it. Dak Prescott is going to sling it. We know that that's the end goal for these guys. I think that Ezekiel Elliott owners, it depends where you drafted him. If you're one of those guys, if you picked Zeke as maybe the 4th or 5th running back overall, you picked him in the first round. I do think at some point you need to look at it and be a little bit worried about Zeke, because he is not going to have the same targets that a guy like Tony Pollard is probably going to get throughout the rest of this season. Tony Pollard, you can see 13 carries for 109 yards. Zeke had 16 for 71. He did score. Thankfully, he scored for everybody. If he hadn't scored, I think you'd see panic from Zeke Elliott owners right now. But I just don't think it's worth paying a guy like Zeke. I've said that a lot. I don't think it was worth paying the guy, because you can find value at the running back position, and they've found that in Tony Pollard. Shut up, ad. But Dak Prescott, 23 for 27. It wasn't one of those 50-throw games that he had in week 1. He didn't throw a touchdown. He got picked off once, but they come away with the victory, mostly because of all these runs on the ground. CeeDee Lamb, big game for CeeDee Lamb, 8 catches for 81 yards. But other than that, Amari didn't have the game that a lot of people were going to expect from him. So the Chargers, however, when you look at the way that they spread the ball around, the way that Justin Herbert is going to continue to sling this thing around, I think Justin Herbert is got to be a guy, if you're looking at fantasy, a top 10, top 12 guy, depending on your league. I know some people that have him on the bench that are starting people that they shouldn't be. Justin Herbert's going to come out and sling it every single week, I think. Keenan Allen, 4 receptions for 108 yards. They get 8 targets. Mike Williams gets 10 targets for 7 catches. Austin Eckler is a monster. In PPR. Now, I don't think he caught a ball last week somehow, but this week, 9 catches for 61 yards on top of 9 carries for 54 yards. Austin Eckler is like a mini Christian McCaffrey. I've always thought that way. I've had him in fantasy leagues in the past. I wish I could have got him this year, but I didn't. Chargers off to a 1-1 start. Cowboys off to a 1-1 start. Dak Prescott still has a lot to prove, I think, to a lot of people. Titans and Seahawks. This game was crazy. You know, the Titans looked kind of miserable for this first half. The Seahawks looked like they were going to walk away from it. Russell Wilson. I have never seen someone have so many fucking wide open wide receivers that Russell Wilson throws to down the field. I don't know why. Always. Why is Tyler Lockett always just running around wide open for Russell Wilson? I don't know. But Russell Wilson had a couple big bombs, which the dude is always going to have. He's always going to have, a couple shots downfield that he extends the play and really just launches it. So that's what he had. Derrick Henry was the story of this game. Derrick Henry came up very small in week 1, had a shitty week 1, had a shitty first half of this game. But what did he go on to do? As we see with Derrick Henry throughout the season, he does this throughout games too. When you look at his numbers first to second to third to fourth quarter, he gets better as the defense gets more tired. And in this game, Derrick Henry came alive in this second half and in overtime. You see the line there, 182 carries for 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns, man. Derrick Henry was a fucking monster. Ryan Tannehill threw for almost 350. Russell Wilson threw for almost 350. Russell Wilson did get those 2 long touchdowns, 1 to Tyler Lockett, 1 to Freddie Swain. DK Metcalf on an okay game, a lot of targets, 6 catches, 53 yards. People want to see one of those big plays from DK Metcalf. He did not get one in this game. But when you look at Tennessee receiving, I think it's going to be a little bit of a mess. I don't think you're going to see A.J. Brown. Like, A.J. Brown was the dominant guy there last year. With Julio Jones there, people are like, oh, it's going to open things up. I think it just brings them both down a notch. they're both going to be viable guys going forward. Julio had a really big game, but I think they cap each other's ceilings when you have both of these guys on either side. From a fantasy perspective, from a normal offense perspective, yeah, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want the idea of two guys on the outside who are these big play threats? But they do need to, figure out what they're doing middle of the field wise, in my opinion. Derrick Henry even had 6 receptions in this game. Tennessee came back in a big way. You see Derrick Henry rumbling down the field there. So Tennessee needed that in this game, because after what they did in week 1, showing up so small like that, and after the first half of this game, there could have been some panic in Nashville. Stop playing ads. There could have been some panic in Nashville. But they come back, they win. No panic in Nashville, at least not yet. And then, of course, you have the Sunday night game. The Sunday night game, Chiefs and Ravens. Now, I think we all knew what to expect, or what we wanted to expect. We expected high scoring. We expected high flying offenses. We expected a lot of things. I don't know if we thought that the Chiefs were going to choke it away like they did and literally fumble the game away like they did. And it took the Baltimore Ravens going for it on 4th and 1 to kind of seal that game. A gutsy call from Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. But you look at these guys, these guys are going to be fantasy relevant. Patrick Mahomes, 343 for 3 touchdowns and a pick. Lamar Jackson, 239 for a touchdown and 2 picks. But of course, 2 rushing touchdowns. Look at him do that little flip into the end zone. Man, showboating a little bit, but what are you going to do? How can you not showboat when you have a night like that, I suppose? We know what Lamar Jackson's going to do in fantasy. We know he's going to be fucking relevant. But Travis Kelce had 7 receptions and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill, weak game from Tyreek Hill. Only 4 targets for Tyreek Hill. 3 catches for 14 yards. Little rough game for him with 1 carry for 15 yards. But overall, the Chiefs play down to whoever they're playing. They don't play up to the competition. They play down to their competition. I think the Chiefs are a better team than Baltimore. I think the Chiefs really let them get back into this game at the end. The Chiefs are one of the worst teams against the spread when you're talking about sports gambling. Now, one of those reasons is because they get so hyped up because of this high-powered offense. But one is just they have these games where they let people hang around, or they don't do anything the first half. They have to come back in the second half like we saw against the Browns. I don't think you have to worry about the Chiefs in terms of them making the playoffs or anything like that. But they do always need to have, you need to have at the back of your mind when you're watching the Chiefs, they just have a tendency to do this. So who knows what it is? Because you win a Super Bowl, then you kind of feel like you're on top of the world. Is that what's like that attitude? I'm not sure, but hopefully Andy Reid can get those guys buttoned up a little bit there, because when the Kansas City Chiefs are on, there is nothing more incredible than watching that offense click. And that's what a lot of people want to see. Luckily, this game, another NFL primetime game that was really fucking good, that had a really good finish, which they've had a lot of those. Will tonight be the same way? Will tonight be the same way? Lions versus Packers. Jared Goff playing for the Lions now. Aaron Rodgers, who came up so weak and so small in that first game in week 1. That was pathetic. Aaron Rodgers, that first game was absolutely pathetic. And I think he's going to have a bounce back game. But of course, I thought he was going to have a big week 1 because I thought he was going to try to send a message. It was so lackadaisical. He just didn't look ready. He didn't look engaged. And everything that we said about the offseason, when Aaron Rodgers was making it all about himself to the detriment of the team, all that came to fruition in week 1. Well, now Packers are at home against the Lions. They need to make a statement here that all is well. If Aaron Rodgers really wants to say relax, then he needs to show it tonight. They need to have a big game. They need to get Aaron Jones going. They need to get Devontae Adams going. Aaron Rodgers needs to be the MVP that he was last year, and he needs to make a statement. I don't think Detroit's going to do much this season with Jared Goff. I think he's a downgraded quarterback. I think that team's going to struggle. I don't think this is going to be a particularly great game because I do expect the Packers to have a bounce back game and send a message. I don't think it's going to be the same level that a lot of other of these primetime games have been. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I want to break 200 points on fantasy. That's what I want. So Aaron Jones, give me a big day, son. That's what I want to see. I want to see Aaron Jones have 120 yards, 1 touchdown, and 5 receptions for 45 yards. That's what I want to see. That would be a great night for me for fantasy for Aaron Jones. We'll see if it happens. We'll see if it happens. I did see a super chat here from Mr. Bubba Matt for $5. Great day to be a Bills fan. You guys didn't have to do much, huh? You guys didn't have to do much. That's for sure. And that's always a good time. When your quarterback doesn't have to do much, you can just run the ball down their throats. It's a good day. And the Bills took care of everything they needed to against a Miami team that lost Tua. Ended up with Jacoby Brissett. Now, Badger Toes over in the Streamlabs. Badger Toes, thank you so much, man, for $27.32. Glad to see you guys doing a recap. I hate the UK Tuesday recap. Well, yeah, this is something we're going to do every week on this channel. It might be right around this time. It might be a little bit earlier. We'll see. We'll see how that works out or how that happens. Somebody's asking about the fantasy matchup. You guys want to see what's going on here? You guys want to see what happened between myself and Jeremy? Are you sure? Are you sure you want to see what's happening? I'll show you. That's what's happening. I am beating the fuck out of Jeremy, as I should, because I do have the best team top to bottom in this league. Of that, there can be no doubt. Jeremy got lucky. I mean, Patrick Mahomes had a big game. Rob Gronkowski had those 2 touchdowns. So he kind of lucked out with that. But I'm demolishing him. I do have the best team. I do still have Aaron Jones going too. I want to bump that up to 200 points. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. This ain't nothing. I had a good week 1, ended up losing to a woman, which I think is bullshit. Her fucking team just had everybody went off, but I knew that my team was solid. My team was getting the volume. I still scored like 150 points that first game, so I felt okay. And sure as shit, I am gonna be fine. Look at my team, dude. I got Kyler Murray. Who's going off. Christian McCaffrey, you always know he's going to get you 25 points. Always. And he could always have more than that. You never know. Keenan Allen is a PPR monster. 16.8 points. Justin Jefferson with a solid game. 18. Noah Fant, with that reception was helpful. But on my bench, look who I got on my bench. I got Kyle Pitts, who's going to come on second half of this season because Jeremy dropped him. So ain't going to be a problem. But look at my bench, guys. It didn't matter who I played. I could have played any of these motherfuckers. It wouldn't have mattered. Adam Thielen had 16 points. Chris Carson had 16 points. McLaurin had 30 points. Johnson for Pittsburgh, like we talked about, who had that little knee injury, 21 points. Ain't going to be a problem. I'm going to dominate in fantasy. I am going to dominate in fantasy. You love to see it. Oh, yeah, by the way, Cooper Kupp. If I forgot to mention Cooper Kupp, who's going to be absolutely fucking phenomenal. Cannot wait. But why did Jeremy drop Kyle Pitts? Literally so he could get Rob Gronkowski. Which he scored 2 touchdowns, so hey, but I just don't think that that's going to work out too well when it's all said and done. But I do want to thank you guys for being here. We're going to be here every single Monday. Monday evening quarterback. I like that. I like the way that rolls off the tongue. We're not doing Monday morning. I ain't going to wake up for that. Monday evening quarterback. So we can do a little preview for Monday Night Football, and we can talk about everything that went down on Sundays. In the future, we are going to be joined by Uche Nwaneri, former Jacksonville Jaguars offensive lineman. We are going to be joined by Robert Barnes, who you've seen talking about sports betting. God, these ads. Robert Barnes, who you've seen talking about sports betting on this channel. Of course, if you are into that, if you want some picks, go to sportspicks.locals.com. That's where Robert has all of his stuff going, where you can get predictions, things like that. Some of the betting lines that we've been putting out for college football, for NFL, you can find that over on sportspicks.locals.com. Highly recommend you go there. I think it's in the description. But thank you to everybody who joined me. Thank you guys in the chat for being here the whole time. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the super chats. You guys are awesome. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.